Hey everybody, welcome again to another episode of the DadHat Entertainment News and Reviews podcast, where we'll discuss the world of modern entertainment media, television, video games, and movies. I am your host, Sean Fontaine, along with co-host Jesse Skillings.
Hello.
And Derek Lloyd.
Hey everybody.
So how's everyone's winter coming along? I mentioned to Derek before the show that it's a nice brisk -2 degrees Fahrenheit outside right now where I am.
It's cold this morning.
Yeah, definitely. Although, I mean, we haven't had a terrible winter here in Connecticut, so have to be thankful for that.
In terms of temperature or snow?
Both, actually. We haven't had too much.
Yeah, it seems like it's been pretty mild so far. I mean, we just had like a warm weekend a couple of weekends ago, right?
Yeah, we did. That was nice.
Yep.
I know 2 weeks ago it was about 45, 50 degrees here. Now it's -2. So, Yay, I love New England.
That's finally here.
Yeah.
Yay.
All right, so this is going to be an interesting show. We have the Oscar nominations that came out just last week that we're going to go through. We also have the TV show Titans that Jesse's going to touch on. I'm going to be covering one of my all-time top 5 favorite games of all time, Halo Reach. And Derek is going to be taking us into 1917.
That's right.
And that's one of the Oscar noms. I am sorely not up to speed on my Oscar movies, I have to admit, right now. I haven't watched a lot of them.
Yeah, I've got I nailed down some of them, but it's the kind of thing I would have loved to have seen them all so I could talk intelligently about each one, but I'm definitely a little behind. There's a good amount that I've seen, but I got some work to do.
Well,
Right.
you've seen a few in the visual effects category.
Yep.
So there's that.
My favorite, I mean, we'll talk about it later, but I think Endgame definitely locks in the visual effects. But that's just me. I'm a big superhero guy. So anyway, so real quickly, I just, again, want to thank all of our current Patreons for their support. Just to remind you, if you'd like to support us on Patreon, it only takes $1 to contribute to become a Patreon. You can sign up at patreon.com/DadHat News and Reviews. If you can't afford to support us in that method, just by listening to the show, giving us ratings, would really help us a lot. And right now I want to take a quick moment to talk about our podcasting host, Buzzsprout.
Have you ever wanted to start your own podcast but just weren't sure where or how to begin? Join over 100,000 podcasters, like us, already using Buzzsprout to get their message out to the world. The team at Buzzsprout is passionate about helping you succeed. They supply all the tools you need to get you up and running and sharing your message to listeners on all the major podcast directories, like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. You can start with some gear that you already have, like a smartphone recorder and a quiet space. And if you want to upgrade, Buzzsprout has tons of guides to help you find the right equipment at the right price. At DadHat, we did quite a bit of research before landing on Buzzsprout to use as our hosting service. And after using it for a while now, we've come to realize that it was the best choice by far. You'll get a great-looking podcast website, audio players that you can drop into other websites, detailed analytics to see how people are listening, tools to promote your episodes, tips and training videos, and more. Following the link in the show notes lets Buzzsprout know we sent you, gets you a $20 Amazon gift card if you sign up for a paid plan, and helps support our show. Buzzsprout, the easiest way to start a podcast.
And for potential sponsors that would like to advertise on our show, we have a spot here for you. You can contact us at dadhatnewsandreviews@gmail.com. So, about the Oscars, let's see what we have on the list here. Do you guys want to go in depth on all of them, or do you think we should just hit on the key ones?
I think they're fun to talk about, more so if they're ones that we've seen, so we can maybe make it based off of that. Like, for example, performance by an actress in a supporting role nominees. Mm-hmm. There's Kathy Bates and Richard Jewell, which I haven't seen yet. Laura Dern in Marriage Story, which I did see. Scarlett Johansson and Jojo Rabbit. I did not see that yet. And Florence, is it Pugh?
I think it's Pugh.
Yeah, in Little Women. Also did not see that, and I haven't seen Margot Robbie in Bombshell yet. So that's a tough category for me to comment on too much, where I can only speak to having seen one. And that was Laura Dern in Marriage Story. Did either of you happen to see Marriage Story?
It's on my list. I definitely want to see it, but I haven't been in the right mood for it because it looks like it's going to be very realistic.
It is realistic and very heavy.
Yeah.
The movie sort of like opens, like a lot of this stuff is a lot of stories about like divorce and things like that. They show you parts of the marriage. I don't know. In this movie, it sort of opens with it already happening. You know what I mean? Like the divorce is basically on the verge of being underway. Like the movie opens and they're already there. It isn't like we see them happy for a while and watch them, their marriage deteriorate. It just sort of begins and it's at the end of their relationship already. So you have to go through all the difficult stuff that comes along with that kind of thing. It was definitely very heavy, but the acting is out of control good.
It looks really good. Yeah.
I like Laura Dern in general.
Yeah. She plays Scarlett Johansson's character's divorce lawyer, and it definitely the movie definitely sort of gives you, I think, the accurate impression of how a lot of the divorce attorneys don't do a lot to make it easier. It's almost like their job gets better when it gets uglier. So, and Ray Liotta plays the divorce attorney of Adam Driver. He's kind of like the male counterpart to Laura Dern's character, and it's kind of cool because in the movie they have like a history of having been faced off against each other before, and that they bring all that baggage to the complicated story. So it's really good.
I think it's funny, just looking real quick, that Adam Driver was not nominated for a supporting role Oscar, but she was. So.
Yeah, she has a bit more to work with, I think. She's got some great dialogue, and I feel like her moments are more powerful than the ones that he's given.
But I definitely know from reading a lot of the articles out there that Laura Dern is the heavy favorite to win. So
interesting. Okay,
that makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, I think with this list, she might have it nailed down. I also have a feeling that the Academy is going to want to recognize that movie. I think it just seems like an Academy movie. I don't know. It's very, very, very like dialogue heavy, and as you would expect, the scenes it's not a big action movie or anything like that. It's the kind of movie that gets recognized.
Right. What about the supporting actor nominees? Did you see any of those guys?
Yeah, I've seen A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. I've seen that's the supporting role one, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I've seen A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Obviously, I reviewed that here. I've seen The Irishman, which I absolutely loved, and I've seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I haven't seen The Two Popes yet.
How about you, Jess? Did you see any of those?
I actually haven't seen any of those yet. I mean, a couple are on my list. I heard The Irishman was really good. And obviously Derek gave a good review of Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, but I haven't gotten around to him yet.
My picks for that are either Joe Pesci in The Irishman, or Brad Pitt in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I think picking any of the others wouldn't seem right. I don't think that The Two Popes... I don't know. I haven't seen it yet, so I shouldn't say that. But Anthony Hopkins, what did he win? He won for Silence of the Lambs. Mm-hmm. And I think something else, Remains of the Day, maybe. Anyway, I mean, Tom Hanks. What does he has? Doesn't he have a few already?
He's got to have.
Yeah. So I have a feeling that whether it should or not, I think that ends up counting against you. And I also don't think I liked it, but I'm not sure that that's the kind of role that's a Oscar-worthy role that he played there. Joe Pesci was really a different kind of Pesci than we've ever seen before, and it's a really awesome, almost subtly portrayed character. I think it was awesome. But then again, I love Brad Pitt in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, so either of those two. Al Pacino, I don't think deserves it for The Irishman. It's not he
Does it happen a lot? I don't think I remember two actors from the same movie in the same category before.
That's rare. There's not one that's coming to mind that I can think of. I'm sure it's not the first time, but yeah, I don't think that. It's just not. Al Pacino is still very much Al Pacino in that role, whereas Joe Pesci is giving a version of himself that I've never seen before. I mean, Al Pacino. It's hard for Al Pacino not to sound like Al Pacino anymore.
Right. But and this actually brings up an interesting point with I really liked Tom Hanks's portrayal of Fred Rogers, but I made this point in one of my Facebook posts, and it actually got a bit of contention from some people that I don't particularly consider acting as someone who already exists in real life as good as acting a character that doesn't exist in real life. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you
saw
mean.
that post. Yeah, I know what you mean. I don't agree.
I think it
do.
depends. It depends for me. Like, how well did they actually embody that person? You know, I think is more what I'm looking for. I think it can be hard to, you know, if
it feels like it's cheating to me. Like you have like a person to emulate, you know, versus this person who doesn't exist. You're giving them a life that people can actually relate to, and they don't even exist. So I find that more of an acting job than someone who would act as someone who exists in real life.
I would agree to a point, but I also think that that's why I said it depends, because it can also work against you, right? Like if I know the person that they're playing really well and they fail to embody that person in a way that I think is an accurate representation of their personality, their tics, the inflection, the way they talk. If I forget at any point that I'm watching the actor playing this other person and I start to think of them as just being that other person, then I think it might be even more challenging or a more difficult task to have achieved. So I don't think I just hold it against them directly.
Yeah, I kind of feel like I take some famous woman from that's been portrayed in a movie. I couldn't do that. Like, I couldn't make myself into that because I'm not an actor. So I still think of it as a real talent to be able to, I don't know, even though you have, like, I understand what you're saying, Sean, about having somebody to go off of. But, yeah, like Derek said, that person exists. So if you can kind of forget who you're watching for a minute, that's pretty amazing, too.
Yeah, I guess that, to embody someone to the point where you suspend the disbelief right then and there, I guess that is pretty impressive. But I'm sticking to my guns. I think if you create something,
I always liken it to like, or there are other. I've been in this argument in other ways before too. Like somebody will point out like Daniel Day-Lewis as like an amazing actor because of his unbelievable versatility. Like he just loses himself in these roles, and you really do forget most of the time that you're even looking at Daniel Day-Lewis. Or Meryl Streep is incredible at that too. Like there's been so many roles where I stop seeing Meryl Streep and I just think of her as whoever she's playing. Mm-hmm. But then there's other types of actors like Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson, Al Pacino. We mentioned it before. Like they always seem like themselves. So there's like some argument that they are like, not as good of an actor because they. But I just don't agree with that. I think that what they bring, they're like those three that I just mentioned are all like really intense actors. Like a lot of their big scenes are like something really cool I learned recently. In A Few Good Men when Jack Nicholson is giving his like really impassioned response towards the end of the film, like you can't handle the truth, mm-hmm. that whole thing. I recently learned that when they were filming that, they would, I guess Rob Reiner, the director, would talk to Jack Nicholson and say, hey Jack, you don't have to give it your all in this one because it's this is we're not going to be the camera's not going to be on you, so you don't have to really do that. And Jack was like, I guess he gives a famous response where he's like, hey, I like acting, that's why I'm here. So he gave it his all whether or not the camera was on him or not. And I'm like, that's awesome. Like he's just super intense. So yeah, I feel like whether you're acting against somebody who exists before, like you're trying to like represent somebody that's in real life, I just think it's another skill. It's another tool in the toolbox. Some people can do it really well and others can't. And when they do it well, it's great. But
so
anyway.
Who do you give the supporting actor to?
The supporting actor I would give to it's so tough. I love Brad Pitt's character in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I might go there, but that still seems like Brad Pitt being Brad Pitt to me. Like he's sort of, which can be tough.
Yeah.
Brad Pitt is very Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
Which will win, and which do you think should win? Let's put it that way.
I think in this particular case, I would give it to Joe Pesci. I think, but I'd be heartbroken to see either one of them lose it. So I have a feeling Brad Pitt's going to be the one to get it. Unless the Academy's like, hey, let's give it to Joe Pesci now because he's old and he may not get another chance, and we didn't give it to him for some of the other great things that he's done, So he might get it based on that. I'd be happy if either one of them got it. I think it would be wrong to give it to any of the other three.
Based on the articles I've read, he's the favorite. Brad Pitt.
Brad Pitt, yeah.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Makes sense.
So moving to performance.
Yeah, so the next category is performance by an actress in a leading role. So this one, I have very little to offer here. Again, the only one I've seen of the 5 that are up so far is Scarlett Johansson in Marriage Story. Cynthia Erivo in Harriet, I haven't seen. Saoirse Ronan in Little Women. Charlize Theron in Bombshell. And Renee Zellweger in Judy. I know Judy, I think, is the favorite, right, Sean?
Yeah, so from what I've been reading, Renee Zellweger is the heavy to win this category.
Yeah, she's playing Judy Garland. I remember seeing a lot of the press about the role before it came out, but once it came out, I didn't even know it hit the theater. It just kind of came and went, I guess. And but I definitely want to check that out.
All right, so let's go into performance by an actor in a leading role.
This one here, we've got Antonio Banderas in Pain and Glory, Leonardo DiCaprio in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Adam Driver in Marriage Story, Joaquin Phoenix in Joker, and Jonathan Pryce in The Two Popes. So I don't know. I feel like this is tough. I don't really know where this is going to end up landing. You know, Joaquin Phoenix is really that role is really liked by a lot of people. I'm not sure it deserves it. I've had some more time to reflect on the movie, and while I do still like it a lot, I don't love it. I don't think it's a great movie. You know what I mean?
But is it the movie that's taking away from your thoughts of him getting it, or is it his actual performance not as up to par like as you thought it would be?
Yeah, I guess that's where I was going for. What I was getting at is I don't really want my feelings on how the movie as a whole lands to really interfere with his ability or his actual presentation of the character. So yeah, I think him being here on this list is totally fine. But
and usually comic book movie, well, not that it's really a comic book movie, but comic book based movies don't usually make it to even the Oscar nominees.
Right. That is nice to see, at least.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, when they deserve it, I'm totally cool with him getting there. And it certainly is a character that probably required a lot of effort to play. Leo DiCaprio's role in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I'm not. Again, I'm just not. It is great. It's tough. It's tough. I don't know where this one would land. Even Adam Driver in Marriage Story is also incredible, and he's doing as much as Joaquin Phoenix is doing in Joker, just in a very different kind of way.
I stand corrected. There's Adam Driver's nomination. I thought he wasn't nominated.
Okay, yeah. So I don't know where I'd want to land here. It's definitely the middle three. I'm pretty confident it's going to be one of those three: Leo DiCaprio, Adam Driver, or Joaquin Phoenix. Something tells me that the Academy is going to veer away from Joaquin Phoenix, but that's just my guess.
They don't want him to give him a speech.
That might be, yeah. I don't know. That could be.
Who knows where that would ramble off into?
Yeah. Yep.
He's actually the favorite to win, from what I've been reading.
Yeah.
And I mean, he was pretty mesmerizing. I was really into that performance when I saw it, and I have nothing else to judge it upon, so I can't really say whether he's better or worse than any of the others. But I thought it was a really good performance.
It's very easy to justify his victory for sure. So that alone might do it.
So all right. So achievement. Let's see. Cinematography. You're an editing guy. I thought you'd like to put your hat in the ring for these kind of categories here, like achievement in cinematography nominees.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer. It's got to go to Roger Deakins' 1917, which I'll get into as we review the movie. Mm-hmm. I've seen all of these except for The Lighthouse, which I have seen a lot of, and the cinematography in The Lighthouse, I think, is definitely awesome. But I think in the end, what happens with 1917, Roger Deakins is unbelievable. There's nobody like him working in Hollywood. I'll get into him in more detail when we get to it. He's just absolutely incredible, and 1917 should win this category, hands down.
I only saw the Joker. What was that?
Is it the favorite to win, Sean? I know you had looked some of that up.
Let's see.
I didn't really focus on that category very much. I mostly looked at like the lead in supporting and, animated films. So
I don't have cinematography as on my list, so I don't know who the favorite was.
Deakins is a legend. It's got to be him. He's just incredible. When I run through the list of things he's done, you'll be like, oh yeah. and when you see the movie too, it's just it's one of the most amazing parts of the movie and what they do. I'll get into it in detail.
Did you see Midway?
I have not seen Midway yet.
I was wondering how that compared to. Well, I mean, it's apples and oranges, I guess. One's a Navy flick and one's like a World War One, infantry flick. But I was curious how those two like matched up against each other.
Yeah, I haven't seen Midway yet.
All right, so I'm going to say Joker because I saw that. Achievement in costume design. Any thoughts on that?
I don't have a lot to say about this one either. But costume design is like always one of those categories that I'm like, people who know better than me can make that decision. I mean, what stands out in the category? The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, Joker, Little Women, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I mean, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood had to sort of like put together a wardrobe that really fit the time and place that the movie takes place. So, I mean, I'd certainly give that one consideration. I'm not sure that costume design I would give to Joker. I mean, I hardly remember anything about it. So,
like the only real like custom work in that is his, ensemble. Other than that, all the rest of it is extras and trapping. You know what I mean? It's like
don't you give it to Little Women? I mean, that's like a period piece. That's usually where it kind of takes that category. It's a way that the Academy gets to acknowledge other things outside of the top winners, right? So that's probably what will happen with that one.
It's the favorite from what I've seen.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yep.
All right, and again, another subcategory here: achievement in makeup and hairstyling. Any thoughts on that?
No thoughts from me, really.
I don't really. I didn't focus on that one too much. I mean, it's a fascinating thing, but not something that I know much about.
I think Joker takes it because it's his green hair. There you go. That was a stretch. All right, achievement in directing. Now we're getting into the meat and potatoes.
Yeah. This one is really, really, really hard, I think.
There's a lot of good ones on there.
Yeah, I think that directing. So you're the Academy. You probably want to give it to.
Actually, before you go, you want to go through the list? So
yeah. So we got The Irishman, Martin Scorsese, Joker, Todd Phillips, 1917, Sam Mendes, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Quentin Tarantino, and Parasite, Bong Joon-ho. And I think that Parasite is the one movie that I'm like disappointed with myself that I haven't seen yet. That's like being widely regarded as like an unbelievable achievement in film. So I really want to see that one. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Quentin Tarantino. Did he win one for director yet? Or has it always been writing?
I don't think he's won for directing yet, no.
Yeah, it's always been writing. So this could be the year where they choose to honor him. I have a feeling they're not going to give it to Sam Mendes for 1917, despite what they do in that movie. This is always a weird category because like I feel like it's hard to see what a director has done to make the movie be great, right? Mm-hmm. Like we watch the actors, we listen to the music, we can see the costumes and all that sort of stuff. But what the director is doing, I mean, can a bad director make a good movie? I think they probably could, right? If the cast was great,
right?
So I always look for things that to award this category in my own mind. I look for things that had to have been a good director, and what's happening in 1917, that had to be a great director. Again, I'll get more into it later. Martin Scorsese seems like a safe choice. It's a really extraordinary way that the movie was released, and the fact that he had to direct old men to play young characters is also something that might be an obvious, achievement. I don't think it's going to go to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and I'm fairly confident Todd Phillips is not going to get it for Joker.
So who's your pick?
If you make me pick one, I'd probably pick Sam Mendes for 1917.
So I know the favorite is Parasite, Bong Joon-ho.
I'd like to see him win it, but it's hard for me to give him the nod because I haven't seen the movie yet.
Right.
But I'd love for him to get it because it's a foreign film, which you don't see a lot, and it's supposed to be amazing. It's one of those movies that it's not missing anywhere. Everyone who's seen it is like, yep, it's as good as they say.
Mm-hmm.
So,
all right. Next is the achievement in film editing, and again, this is one of the things I thought you'd be keen on talking about.
Yeah. So Ford versus Ferrari and Parasite are and Jojo Rabbit I haven't seen. So we got Ford versus Ferrari, The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, Joker, and Parasite are the options. I don't know where this will land. I mean, Ford versus Ferrari I imagine would be a contender where the editing is probably obvious, but I haven't seen it yet, so I can't really comment too much on where I think it will go. Not really sure that Joker is a movie that should get it. I think this will be one of the ones where they veer away from the big winners to at least bring something else up. So if Parasite loses in other categories, they might give it here. If The Irishman fails to take it in other categories, I think it could take it there. And that would be an interesting choice because editing is all about trimming a movie down for the right pace for a film, and The Irishman is notorious for its length. It's like, was it 3.5 hours long or something like that?
Well, it didn't do many cuts.
Yeah. How does a person view that? Are they like, no way, the movie's too long, that's bad editing? Or are they like, wow, for a 3.5 hour long movie, it was edited really well. It kept I felt engaged the whole time, and that's how I feel. I was not bored at any point in The Irishman, and all of the cuts seemed seamless and well chosen, and all that kind of stuff. So maybe The Irishman should get it for that fact alone. It's a long movie that kept me engaged the entire time. Do you get credit for not cutting things? For not editing something out? I don't know.
It was all good. 6.5 hour long.
Yeah.
The favorite, odds-on favorite, is Ford versus Ferrari.
Yep.
Are there any movies that stick out for you, Derek, or you, Jesse, that were really good editing choices?
I'll tell you that it makes absolutely no sense that 1917 is not on this list. I don't know what's going on. I mean, it absolutely should win it. I'm sort of like saving it here, but one reason alone I think makes it so that this movie should have absolutely not just been on the editing nominees list, but won it. It doesn't make sense that it's not. I don't get it.
Maybe weird. It's getting too much, in the other categories. I guess they had to thought they had to space it out. Maybe,
but I mean, you're putting Joker on the list and you're not putting 1917 on the list for editing. Again, it seems like the most obvious choice to not only be nominated but to win. So that's strange.
So, all right, moving into achievement in production design, which I guess is sort of akin to the same as editing. Not the same as editing, but I mean, what would be the big difference in that actually?
I find it the close to would be cinematography and production design. I feel like those two overlap a little bit, but yeah, I don't know exactly what the major differences are. Cinematography, I guess, is how it's filmed and the choices that are made in filming it, and production design is more about set design, I guess, right?
When you make out the mat boards with all the scenes on it and stuff, just how it's laid out, I guess, before you actually do the filming.
Yeah, I would imagine it must also include prop creation and all that stuff too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we got The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, 1917, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, or Parasite. I'm not sure that any of these would be bad choices. 1917 is the one that probably affected me the most. I think some of the stuff that's going on in that movie, again, things I'll get into when we talk about it, that seemed to be the most challenging of the lot here, and that goes hand in hand with the cinematographer Deacon's the way he shot the movie and the choices that were made there. But yeah, so that'd be my pick. I know I'm being redundant here, and especially it's a movie that's like fresh in my mind for having just seen, but that's probably where I'd go.
Yeah, I don't know which one is a favorite, so that's going to be a mystery. Achievement in music written for motion pictures.
Well, do we give it to John Williams again?
Why not?
Why not?
I love that guy.
Yeah. In this category is one of my other favorite composers, however.
Randy Newman?
Thomas Newman.
Oh.
Yep, Thomas Newman, who has done some of my all-time favorite scores that I include just on my iPad. And I'll be listening to like music at the gym, and all of a sudden a Thomas Newman score will come on, and it's inspiring stuff. He did the Shawshank Redemption, American Beauty, just a lot of like really memorable soundtracks that go under. His name isn't as well known as a lot of the other composers, but he's incredible. But yeah, I mean, what do you do? I guess the thing is, I thought Rise of Skywalker's score was a little uninspired. I'm not sure that there was any part of the music in that one that sounded something different than he had done at any point prior. You know, it's certainly not John Williams' best stuff.
Right. It's sort of a mashup of, like, they were trying to hit the old, heartstrings, so of course they're going to take the tones from some of the original movies. So It was sort of like a reworking of that. I mean, a lot of it wasn't, like you said, original that I could think of.
Right.
That I can remember anyway.
It's probably the last time we're ever going to hear John Williams do a score for Star Wars, so he might win it based on that alone.
That's true.
And all I know is I downloaded the soundtrack for 1917 when I got home. So
I don't have the favorite for that. So
okay. All right. So the next one we've got is Achievement in Music Written for Motion Picture, original song. Tough for me to comment on a lot of these here, so I don't think I would even just give it to Randy Newman again.
Yeah, I mean. Any Toy Story movie that I've seen, the soundtrack is just like spot on,
Yeah, isn't it like an industry joke that he just keeps winning these? Like, I mean,
yeah, I mean he's been spoofed on like Family Guy and stuff like that. So
yeah. I mean, it must suck to be the other contenders. They're like, he's gonna win it again. This is gonna be the year that I'm in here. Is the one he's in here again. So
although I think the favorite that I saw through most of them is Rocket Man. I'm Gonna Love Me Again. Okay. Because Elton John, obviously, is not that bad at making music.
Yeah, that's for sure.
That's what I hear.
And next up, we got adapted screenplay nominees. We've got The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, Joker, Little Women, and The Two Popes. So this is an adapted screenplay. Yeah, I don't know there. What was the Joker adapted from?
I don't get that. I mean, is it just because it's like an amalgam of the character from the comic books and it's adapted, or was there something specifically written that was like his backstory that I don't know anything about?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
I don't know the answer to that one either.
Maybe the categories are, have these requirements where if it's a character that existed somewhere else, it automatically pops into adapted. Maybe.
So who'd you give it to?
I'd give it to The Irishman. I love what's going on in that movie.
Is that a novel?
It is, yeah. The Irishman was actually originally published as a book called I Heard You Paint Houses. Have either of you seen The Irishman yet?
No.
All right, so that will make little sense to you right now. But, it's like a mafia phrase. I heard you paint houses. That means that you shoot people in the head and paint the walls of the house with their blood. Nice. So it means you're a hitman, basically. Yeah. I'd give it to that one. It's my favorite of the ones that I've seen in there. I also think it's a challenge to get that kind of a story onto a movie, even when you have 3.5 hours. So.
Right. So original screenplay nominees.
So we've got Knives Out by Rian Johnson, my favorite. Not really. Marriage Story, written by Noah. Is it Baumbach? I think it is. 1917 by Sam Mendes and Christy Wilson Cairns. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood by Quentin Tarantino, and Parasite by Bong Joon-ho, Han Jin-won, and A Story by Bong Joon-ho. So This is going to be an interesting category. It's one of the ones I'm most looking forward to see where it lands. So I haven't seen Parasite yet, so I can't tell where I'd fall here. I also haven't seen Knives Out yet, which I know people absolutely loved. Of the ones that I've seen, I would definitely pick Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I think that script is great. I think it's what makes the movie great. So I think I would probably give it to that one. But again, that's not a very informed opinion because I haven't seen two of the other favorites.
So that's actually the heavily favored to win Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yep.
Backing up a little bit, the best adapted screenplay, the favorite is Little Women. So,
okay, yeah.
You know, in judging these to just become nominees and then, obviously which is the winner, is there a standardized way that they do it? Like, do they have scorecards to go through each movie and they tally up the scores after, or do they just say, I like that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's a little mysterious. I think it is if I'm not mistaken, I think it's a ballot-based thing where they sort of like submit their choice, and I think that's how they do it. But yeah, I don't think it's a science. I feel like a lot of this is. I mean, we see some years where a person objectively should have won that didn't, and it went to like a director that they meant to honor long ago but never got the chance, or an actor that should have won for this and that, but now we're going to give it to him for this lesser movie in a year where somebody was clearly the better choice. That happens frequently over Oscars history. So
how do you feel about that?
I don't like it. This is definitely something that has contributed to less and less people being interested in the Oscars over the years. So, yeah, I mean, I also don't think it's a good idea to pander to what the general population thinks, but I think some type of like objective criteria should be applied across the board. And, but it's hard. It's subjective material. So how are you objective with that? I don't know. It can't be easy to come up with like criteria, especially like I said, where you don't really get a chance to see what a director does, right?
Right.
You're not there. You're not present. I mean, you just get to see the finished result, but the finished result could the real reward could belong to any number of people that were involved in the production. I don't think it's always obvious to see that the director had the hand in it. But
the other thing too is, are there any other awards that cater to the public's opinion, like that you could actually like, I don't know if they would have like an online voting thing or something, but like that the public decides?
Well, the MTV Movie Awards used to do that. They were strictly...
That's what came to mind for me, too. That was the only thing I can think of.
Yeah. When you get a category like Best Kiss of the Year, you know that it's got to be public opinion. So I think that one did it. But MTV is not really relevant anymore, right?
Right.
Right.
Do you think that public opinion should factor into these?
I think I'm glad it doesn't. I mean, otherwise... I would
Avengers Endgame would win everything.
Yeah, it would just be superhero movie after superhero movie, and I don't want to deride them too much because they obviously are awesome and have their place, but it's not art, I sort of come down with Martin Scorsese there a little bit. I know he took a lot of heat over that, but I get what he's saying, I mean, cinema can be so much more than that, and I just think that they're really, it's easy to criticize some of the stuff that's going on there. Like when, spoiler alert, when Spider-Man is about to be disintegrated or whatever, or become, what do we
snapped.
say happens to him there?
He was snapped.
Snapped out of existence. Not for 1 second did I think that he wouldn't be back. Not for a second. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, this is just going to be undone with a snap in the next one. And sure as shit, that's exactly what happened, right? There was only one or two people that were permanently, gone. So that makes an emotional connection tough, right? And what's called Rise of Skywalker is getting a lot of heat for all of the emotional stakes being completely nullified. Chewbacca's destroyed, and I feel something about it for 5 seconds, and then the next scene it's like, oh no, don't worry about it, he's fine. He was on another ship that you didn't see that escaped. And like that, I don't know, I mean, not that I want to see Chewbacca get smoked, but that's sort of like, going back to The Last Jedi, when Finn was about to make that sacrifice, that was the only moment in The Last Jedi where I was like, holy shit, they're gonna they're gonna do this. This is sick.
Mm-hmm.
And then Rose comes along and smashes him out of the way, and they get their little kiss. And to me, that just like ruined the emotional stake. It like builds you up to feel something, and then no, it's not really what's going on. And maybe there's an argument that with a movie for kids that you've got to do that a little bit more. But anyway.
So in general, you think the general public doesn't have the palate to define an Oscar-worthy thing?
Yeah, my snobbiness feels exactly that. Exactly that. That is right. I'm not going to deny it. The general population is not qualified to pick what is best.
You heard it here first, folks. All right. On that note, let's move to Best Motion Picture of the Year nominees.
We've got, let's see, Best Picture. We got Ford versus Ferrari, The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, Joker, Little Women, Marriage Story, 1917, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Parasite. So they've got a lot of them there. I think that this might...
What, like, just to begin with, who do you think shouldn't be on that list, like, right off the bat?
Again, I have to concede I didn't see some of the ones. I haven't seen Little Woman, so what does it say about me that I would remove that without having seen it? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if I would say... I mean, this is the number of... I don't know that I would put any other movies that were released above any of these, I guess. So if they're going to pick this many movies, which I think they do now, then I think these are probably all sensible picks. I'm sort of angry I haven't gotten to see Ford versus Ferrari yet because the people that I trust that have seen it have said it's really good. It didn't do much for me in the trailers, which is why I didn't rush out to see it, but I guess it's really good. So yeah, I don't know that I would take away anything on this list. I think that this is Quentin Tarantino's year, though.
Really?
I think where he gets Best Picture. Yeah. Either that or Parasite. It's going to be one of those two, is my guess.
So I know the odds-on favorite from what I'm reading is actually 1917.
Interesting. I think that's going to get other categories, but not Best Picture. But I'd be fine if it got it. And I'll give my reasons why soon.
When is the Oscars?
It's February 9th, so it's coming up in another couple of weeks.
So is that something you never miss?
I wouldn't say that. There are some years that I've cared a lot and other years where I've cared not at all. I am definitely interested this year, so I will probably plant myself in front of the TV with some popcorn and watch it. But yeah, there's some years the past few years I really haven't cared. I thought like they've just been bad years for films in general. So,
how about you, Jesse?
I just haven't. It's never been something that I really like tuned into all the time. It just depends. I think it kind of like depends on the year. Yeah, like what's going on in it.
Yeah,
I'm curious.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I'm curious to see how Joker does. That's probably the only main reason that I want to check it out this year. I particularly don't care either way about the Oscars, but this time, since I liked that movie and I want to see how it fares against the other ones, that it's got my interest. So
yeah, I mean people love to. I've got a lot of friends online who crap on the Oscars and they rail against who are these celebrities to get up and say stuff. And like anybody else, I thought Ricky Gervais' thing was really great. I loved the way he kind of threw it back at them a little bit. But I don't know. They're citizens too, and I know De Niro recently made a comment about that. And they've got a platform, they've got something to say, they have the opportunity to say it. I don't begrudge them. I think anybody who adheres to what they say in some admiring way, I'm not sure that's a great idea. But I got to admit, I like hearing people give their opinions. I don't care whether I agree with them or not. I sort of enjoy people giving their opinions, and so I don't mind any of that aspect of it. And also just the idea of like, I do think film is art, and I think honoring art is awesome, even if it's a little incestuous and comes from within. I still think that it's a good way for people to be made aware of something that they should check out, because movies can make your life better. They've affected me. They've been a huge part of my life for my entire life. So I'm all for it. I think you get up there and you just point out the things that are really worth mentioning. I think it's worthwhile.
One of the last things I wanted to hit on is for the Oscars in general is what's your thoughts on people who just talk and talk and talk even into the music of the get off the stage music?
Sometimes it's funny. Sometimes I wish that they would, wrap it up.
Like the little hook coming from stage left, just to pull them off.
I'm trying to think where was that there was a skit that had the wrap it up button. What was that? Where did I see that? Do you guys remember that?
I don't remember where it's from. No.
It was like a wrap it up button, but you took it with you everywhere in life. So when someone's talking, you take out the wrap it up button, play it, and it starts to play the wrap it up music. Yeah.
Oh, that's
awesome.
Perfect.
It's like, I need one of those.
That would be pretty cool, actually.
Somebody ought to play it on me, actually.
I'm going to superimpose it on the track here.
Wrap it up.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, not all the time. It's just kind of rude. Like, there are people coming behind you, and you're taking their time,
Exactly, yep.
It's like, just be ready, and don't just ramble on about nothing.
Right. Come prepared. Get up there. Shoot out the people you got to thank. Secure your future with working with them again, and do what you got to do. And, make your little political statement if that's what you got to do. But expediency is appreciated, I think, and they clearly give leverage to people that are there for the big ones, right? Like the actors and the actresses get to
at the Golden Globes. Tom Hanks had all the time in the world to talk.
Yeah. But you come up there to get your Oscar for best costume, and you better be brief.
Yeah, that's definitely not one that you spend a lot of time on.
Yep.
All right. So, any other thoughts on the Oscars in general, guys?
Not really. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to watch it. Do you think you'll watch it this year, Jess?
I think I might. And well, my final thought on it was I don't think we went over the short film.
No.
The animated short film, and I am really, really excited. I was saying before we started recording for Kitball, I really hope that gets some recognition. I thought it was a really great short.
Where did you see that one?
Well, we have the Disney Plus channel, and they have all their shorts on there.
Oh, cool.
So you can go through like the whole Pixar collection. And I happened to actually catch it online as well because a bunch of my rescue friends, we work in dog rescue, and they, shared it because they thought it was really great. I don't want to give too much of it away. It's very short, obviously, and you can catch it on YouTube and Disney and all that. But it's about an abused pit bull, like in a fighting ring, befriending a kitten, and it's adorable and
that's awesome.
Really great for the breed too. So
cool.
I did see that one. Now that I think about it, that was a really good. Really.
Oh, did you? Yeah. It was really sweet.
I don't want to give away the end, but it's just like, it's so good. It pulls on the heartstrings. It's great.
Awesome.
So yeah, I'll give them an Oscar. It's the only one I think I've seen. But yeah, I don't think short films get a lot of love in general.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add is Uncut Diamonds is sort of in the press for having been totally snubbed. Adam Sandler, which I haven't seen that yet either, but that's also getting a lot of love. But I actually will probably aim to review that one on this podcast if the time's right.
Oh, cool. All right, so why don't we make a switch from movies to television and jump into Jesse's review of Titans.
Okay. Well, I'll give a little background on it first. It's fairly new. It began in 2018, and I think, to the best of my knowledge, it's only available on the DC streaming service. I don't think I could find it on Netflix, even though they had an advertisement for it originally. So maybe something changed with that. It's absolutely nothing like the cartoon version of, Teen Titans. It's going to be pretty dark. It's realistic. These are live action characters. So the ones that they feature most prominently are, I don't know how familiar you guys are with like a lot of these guys, but Dick Grayson, Nightwing,
yep,
Raven, they've got Wonder Girl, Beast Boy, Starfire, a couple characters I hadn't even heard of, Hawk, Dove. I don't really know too much about those. Deathstroke is in it a little bit, Robin. So a lot of those people. And it's, like I said, it's pretty dark. I started off watching it thinking I would really enjoy it because I have watched the show with my kids And I didn't expect it to be exactly like that, but I just thought, oh, well, we'll get more background on the characters in a more adult fashion, which we do. But it's actually a little slow, I think, to start. And then it's punctuated by extreme moments of like gore and violence. To me anyway, I'm usually okay with a pretty high level of violence. Like war movies are my favorite genre. But some of this was just shocking, and there were some scenes that I saw coming, and I was like sitting there just terrified for what was about to happen next because I knew it was just going to be horrible. So, I mean, it's a pretty dark take on it, and it does get to a slow start, but I think if you enjoy the characters and you just, enjoy that kind of superhero dark genre in general, it's worth giving it a shot. I wouldn't tell people not to watch it. It just wasn't my favorite.
How do the kids react to it?
Oh, I won't let them watch this.
Oh, I thought you said you did. Okay.
No. I watched the cartoon with them.
I see. I gotcha.
And that's how I knew about any of the characters, really, for the most part. My favorite one is Raven in both the cartoon and this. And the first season kind of follows her for a while, her story and her background and where she comes from and her powers. There is this... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, is each season sort of that where it kind of follows each individual character mostly?
So I'm not sure exactly because I've only seen most of season 1. There is a season 2, and they have a season 3 up on IMDb with like 1 episode listed so far. So it could be that they kind of do that. I know that we don't really see Nightwing as he is, for quite a while into the series. So they might be focusing on different characters first and kind of giving us some background. And I'll definitely watch some more, like with the adults in my family, not the kids.
Yeah. Did you get a sense for like? I know that it's tough to say because every kid's different, but do you have like a sense after watching season 1, like what might be a good age to sort of check it out? It's like young teen, okay? Or
I think, that's a hard one to say, honestly, for me, because if something is historically based, just me personally, I'm more likely to let my kid watch like I was saying, like a war movie.
I agree.
Or something.
Yeah. Yep.
Because, okay, this happened, people went through this, but this kind of more, I don't want to say supernatural because it's just superpowers and stuff like that, but this darker take on them, I think, especially with my kid, he's a little more realistically based, so I feel like he might be a little more sensitive towards it.
Sure.
I probably would wait till like his high school teen age, like 14, 15.
Yep.
It gets pretty intense.
Okay, cool.
So definitely depends on the kid, of course, like you said, but I wouldn't have like my 10-year-olds watching it with me as much as it's nice to sit down and watch, enjoyable stuff for everyone.
Right. So if it gets an R, it's for violence for the most part?
I think so. There's one scene, I don't want to give away too much, but there's kind of this cult that's following Raven. They're trying to unlock her powers and show her that she doesn't always destroy things. She can, fix things too. And this guy from, that organization slits his own throat in front of her so that she'll heal him.
Okay.
And it's a pretty gory scene. Like, it's very visceral and very sudden.
Okay.
So stuff like that, I would say, kind of steer the younger teens away from it a little bit. But it's definitely something that I'm sure a lot of people would want to check out. It's got a good story to it. It's just not quite my cup of tea.
Yeah.
So does it actually take place in the same universe as like the Arrowverse, like with Arrow and Supergirl, that sort of stuff?
So I think it does, but I've heard that it's the exact opposite of, like, I've heard that exact comparison made, that it's complete opposite of the Arrowverse, just in how dark it is. Like, you're not going to watch a CW romantic teen drama. You're going to see some really gory stuff and see some pretty dark shit happening.
But supposedly it does exist with each other.
I believe so.
I'm always a big fan of crossover stuff. That's why I was curious. But
oh yeah, gosh, I don't even know how they handle that. I mean, Arrow is so like happy-go-lucky compared to some of this stuff.
Mm-hmm. I don't have what is it, the DC channel? Is that?
Yeah, it's the DC Universe kind of streaming service.
There's so many now.
There are so many, and it's not one that I've found a lot I like to watch on because I don't really watch a lot of cartoons. And the other adults in my family seem to enjoy them a lot more than I do, like the more adult cartoons and Justice League, stuff like that. So they're really enjoying the service, but I haven't found much that I personally want to watch on it.
It'd be nice if they get to a point where they somehow centralize all these different channels and then make it so, like, you know, you can choose to watch this show for, you know, rather than streaming, paying for the consistent service. If you could, you know, in addition to doing that, you could, like, kind of just purchase a show or a season.
Just a la carte, basically.
Yeah. That would be nice. I mean,
that would be nice, too.
I have no problem paying for stuff. I just don't want to pay for, you know, consistent streaming for something that I just want to see one thing of, you know?
Right.
So.
Well, like you said, there's so many now, too.
Yeah.
It's going to end up being like a cable package where you, you know, you choose some group rate on stuff. And
yeah, I think it's heading there. I think there'll be some centralized service that sort of, you know, casts the blanket over all of them.
Offers all of them, yeah. That would actually be nice because we have Hulu, Disney Plus, Netflix, DC.
CBS.
We
NBC's doing one now.
Amazon, I think, and then we have Amazon too, and then my brother-in-law has Fubo TV, which is like cable, you know, streaming TV on his phone that he casts to the TV for sports and stuff like that. So we have a million services.
Yeah, that a la carte thing isn't coming, you know, soon enough.
It's not
even Hulu. Like, you know, we're spending like almost $50 a month on Hulu, and then my wife and I basically watch like 3, 4, maybe 5 shows in general, you know,
right,
out of all that's on there. So it's like, I don't know.
And then all of the streaming services offer other channels and stuff. Like you can get the Stars with Amazon Prime, and you can get HBO with Amazon Prime, and so it would be nice to have a centralized thing and kind of figure that out, but they can keep taking my money for now because I'm not getting rid of anything.
Right. Yep. There is some good TV out there, except I did drop Apple just because I was watching it for The Mandalorian. Not Apple, Disney. See, I keep getting all confused.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I'll pick it up again in the fall when Mandalorian comes back. But
good idea.
So, all right. Why don't we go switch gears again? We'll go from TV into video games. I'm going to be reviewing Halo Reach. It's a first-person shooter that was developed by Bungie and published by Microsoft Game Studios. It was originally released in September of 2010, which is when I first played it on the Xbox 360. It's the 5th game in the Halo series, and it's a direct prequel to Halo Combat Evolved, the first Halo game. So the reason I'm reviewing such an old game is actually it was just re-released on Master Chief Collection. It's an anthology of games, of the Halo games, that came out in 2014, and they just recently added Halo Reach last October. So I took the chance to relive the game again. Again, I mentioned it before that this is one of my favorite games of all time. So the story, for people who know Halo, the game franchise in general, there's a lot of history surrounding the story of Reach in Halo canon lore. The story takes place in the 26th century. Up until then, humans had never come across any other intelligent alien life. That changes, though, when a mysterious collective of aliens known as the Covenant reveals itself to humanity and begins this genocidal campaign to wipe them from existence. The job of protecting humanity fell to the United Nations Space Command, or the UNSC. The planet Reach, which is their main military stronghold aside from Earth, was their best-kept secret. The secrecy of Reach's location was critical to Earth's and humanity's survival. But unfortunately, they do find Reach, and they begin a full-scale assault on the planet. During this time, on the planet is Dr. Catherine Halsey. She's the architect of the Spartan Super Soldier program, who Master Chief is one of. She finds this breakthrough in her research of an ancient alien relic from a race called the Forerunners. She thinks that this information could hold the key to humanity's survival at this point. So with the fall of Reach imminent, Noble Team, an elite group of Spartan super soldiers, is given a top secret mission to make sure that Dr. Halsey's research makes it off planet before all is lost. In general, games like this with that sort of like heavy all or nothing storyline is what really grabs me, and I just kind of love that premise. You play as Noble 6. He's a Spartan super soldier. He's the newest member of the team. The gameplay is basically everything a first-person shooter should be. While it still looks like a previous generation console game, since it did come out in 2010, only with a bit of spit and polish on it now, the playability itself still holds up really well against current-gen games. Bungie, who developed it, basically invented the modern first-person shooter with Halo Combat Evolved. So by the time Reach came out, they had already had 4 other Halo games under their belt and basically perfected the craft, as is evident in their new games, Destiny and Destiny 2, if you played them. As is pretty standard in most first-person shooters, you can customize your character's armor pieces aesthetically. You unlock those by, you get a season pass for the game that comes with 100 unlockable tiers. And to unlock each tier, the player needs to use their season points, which are basically earned through gameplay. None of them increase your armor stats, so it doesn't give you any unfair advantages. When you play in PvP matches, it's just aesthetics only, which is good. The gunplay is nice and crisp and responsive. Weapons feel good when you use them. Enemy types are numerous, and they have a nice wide range of difficulty in defeating them. Certain attacks and weapons will work better against certain enemies depending on who you're fighting. The visuals have been jacked up for the re-release. The original game that came out on the Xbox 360 was running at a resolution of 720p at 30 frames per second. So now, as part of the Master Chief Collection, it runs, currently, I'm playing it on an Xbox One S, with a resolution of 1080p at 60 frames per second. It's nice, crisp, and smooth, and fluid. It's awesome. There's a decent variation of missions to keep everything interesting. In general, the gameplay isn't anything you haven't played before, since it is, such an aged game, and other first-person shooters have followed suit. But the way they do it is done exceptionally well, even for an aged game like this, so it's really a nice experience all over again. My overall impressions are the visuals are pretty good for its age. While the textures haven't changed, the resolution has been upped in the frame rate, so it does look a lot better and moves a lot more fluidly on the screen. There are 4 difficulty levels: easy, normal, heroic, and legendary. There are also skulls you can turn on and off, which is like specific difficulty settings within the regular difficulty settings that you can turn on or off, regardless of the primary difficulty setting. For this gameplay, I set it to heroic because I felt Derek went up to me on Last Jedi and was playing it on a level higher than me, so I was like, I gotta up my game here, or I'm gonna look pretty bad. The music really does a great job as well of making the feel of the story at any given point that much richer during the gameplay. It was composed by Marty O'Donnell, who is my favorite game music designer. Just love his scores for any of the games that he's done. Pretty much all of the Halo games and the first Destiny are all scored by Marty O'Donnell. While I love the story of the game regardless, I don't think it would have been so impressive if it hadn't been for the phenomenal voice acting. The whole team of, there are 6 different soldiers in the team, and each of them has their own unique personalities. They give these great, fantastic performances, voice-wise. They're not just your stereotypical futuristic super soldier, bullet sponge. You actually feel something for them by the end of the game. So my final thoughts on the game in general. The main reason that I have this game in my top 5 of all time is mostly due to the way the developers are able to convey that emotion that I was talking about in the situational gameplay, through gameplay as well as the cutscenes. While I don't consider it a spoiler at this point because it's been out for so long and most of the Halo fans know the story of Reach already, the final mission of the game is basically fight for as long as you can before you die. I mean, there's no way you're going to get off Reach alive, but it's what you do in the time that you have that makes a difference to who will live on after you. And that's kind of like that story that I really fall in love with. So the tropes like duty and honor are definitely there, but there's just a little bit more going on there just below the surface that Halo Reach does a fantastic job of instilling that stoic heroism in your character, Noble 6, in you as the player. So
That's cool.
Yeah, a little bit of trivia. They really didn't change any missions from the game from 2010 to now, but in one particular mission, they've actually added some more voice acting. And I know I've brought this guy up a lot in our podcast, but one of the ODST troopers that you need to rescue is Edward Buck, who's voiced by Nathan Fillion from Firefly. So
Oh, cool.
Oh, that's kind of neat.
he
I don't
keeps
think I knew that.
coming up again and again in this game series, which I'm totally for. I think he's awesome.
Yeah, I had a kind of a cool connection to this game too when it first came out. At our Battleground stores when this game released, it was a period of time where we thought it was a really cool idea to have like a I don't know, I don't want to. It was like basically a game center where we put 4 TVs along the wall and connected Xboxes. I think it was 360s at the time, and we
So
would
they could do co-ops.
Yeah, you could rent by the hour to play the Xbox, and I had like cool seats that we set down on the floor. They were like really low to the ground, and it was really cool. People really took to it for a while, and we had it at the time. We had our Abington, and we've since moved it to Norton, but it was a Plainville location, and both of those spots had it. And we used to do like after hours games, and they were some of my favorite memories of Battleground over the years. We'd go. 2 people per TV, so it was like 8-man, Halo Reach games, and would pick from the different maps to choose from and just play versus. It was so much fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't really play player versus player a lot in these games. I like the single player campaign, like I mentioned in other podcasts. But from what I've read about Reach and the multiplayer, that it's just a nice, fun experience in general.
Yeah, it was great. And what's nice with playing with people that you know, as opposed to just like signing on to random online things, is the level is brought down a little bit. There's always still the one of your friends who's better than anybody else, and you want that person on your team. But it's funny with video games, especially shooters. The distance between an okay player and a great player is so vast that it makes playing against those people really unfun.
Yeah,
you know? Like,
there's no point if you're playing for fun to go against people like that.
Yeah, like we sort of tried to do tournaments for a little while at the store where we did like, store credit prizes, or we even tried to do a cash prize one. But as soon as you announce a cash prize, you bring in people from far afield that are really good at the game. And, after the first time you play against those people, you try to run it a second time, and those same people show up, and nobody wants to enter. They're like, I might as well just give this person my $5,
Right.
So yeah, it's the distance. It's not like a game, like a card game like Magic the Gathering, where a newer player or a less experienced player still has some chance to beat like a pro. It's still not as good, but there's a chance they might. Just the way the game, the luck element of the game. But the video games pretty much wipe out the element of luck, and the skill players are just so good.
Right. And especially... go ahead.
I was going to say, if you're like on their screen for even a split second, it's headshot, you're dead.
Right. And somehow they can see you when you're like 2 pixels big. Like
it's incredible, yeah.
And it's amazing to me. And even games like Destiny 2, like I mentioned, they had made it so new players can jump in, and skill level aside, they're giving you basically the same equipment to give you stand a chance against these long lived players on these PvP servers. But then again, it's like that skill is what makes all the difference, and you just can't beat them.
Right. And some of the maps are cool. Like I remember there were certain maps that I enjoyed because like I'm kind of a camper when it comes to these things. So there were certain maps that were more conducive to that style of play, and other ones you try to camp, you just get smoked every.
Did you
every
like
second.
the inner, like the maps that were inside, or the ones that were on the outside field?
There was one that was an outside field that I loved. It had like all these cave entrances, and I just loved it. It was a really like there were lots of places where you could go to kind of like get a good vantage point. Sooner or later, somebody would figure out where you were, and then you were done for. But you would have gotten a few kills by that point.
And I know they have all of the original maps, and I think they might have added 2 new ones to the ones in the Master Chief Collection. So
cool.
And again, like if you have Xbox Game Pass service, the game is basically free to play. So there's really no point in not playing it if you have an Xbox or that service. So I highly recommend it. All over again. I love that game.
Yep.
I haven't played any of them since like the first one.
The first Halo?
Yeah. I mean, we downloaded Destiny when you were reviewing it, but yeah, I haven't played any of them in a long time. They were really fun.
I like going back sometimes and playing the old goodies.
Yeah. They were trailblazers for sure.
Mm.
All right. So, and finally, we're going to jump into Derek's review of the Oscar-nominated 1917.
Yeah, so this is a Universal Pictures release. It's a rated R, and it runs at about 110 minutes. Just for some of the qualifications, it's directed by Sam Mendes, who people probably know from his work on American Beauty, Road to Perdition, Jarhead, Revolutionary Road, and Skyfall. It was also written by Sam Mendes with Christy Wilson Cairns, and she was also involved in writing 9 of the Penny Dreadful episodes. I thought was worth mentioning. The movie stars Dean Charles Chapman, who you might recognize from The King, The Commuter, and Game of Thrones. He's actually he played Tommen Baratheon, the youngest of the Baratheon children that assumed the throne. So the youngest of Cersei's children in that show. It's also George McKay, who, it was weird. I recognized him, but I feel like I recognized him, but I couldn't place where he's in a movie, Defiance, and I'm not even really sure that that's where I remember him from, but he's done some TV and things like that, so maybe I saw him there, but he was great in this movie. But it was the first time in a big motion picture that I saw him. There's also cameo appearances, and they're kind of cool. It's Daniel Mays, Colin Firth, Benedict Cumberbatch, and Richard Madden, who, also Game of Thrones alumni, played Robb. So, yeah, it's kind of neat. All the cameos are like really important people in the military, for example. Like, Benedict Cumberbatch plays like a general, so like you're sort of like waiting to see, you hear his name mentioned, the character's name mentioned a bunch throughout the movie. And it's kind of cool that they used actual like recognizable actors as the big, important personages in the army. Early on in the movie, it was kind of one of the things that like really grabbed me. There's a quote that Colin Firth says that just stayed with me. He said it, and I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I have to go look that up afterwards. And the quote is, "Down to Gehenna or up to the throne, he travels fastest who travels alone." And that's something that he says to the 2 boys who are going on this mission. That's his instruction there to the 2 charges at the start of the film. So 1917 definitely deserves to be in the running for Best Picture. Let's put that to bed right away. It does so many things well, and it's the sort of movie that I most like to see when I go to the theater. It offers spectacle, but not of the digital sort. At least it doesn't ever really feel digital. We follow 2 young British soldiers that lead us through the battlefields of the First World War on an extremely difficult mission. They're shouldered with the weighty responsibility of crossing through enemy lines to deliver a message to a colonel that's about to lead 1,600 men into a trap laid by the Germans. And one of the 2 young men has an older brother who's among those soldiers, and if they don't reach them within the short window provided, it's expected that all of them will be killed. There's so many things that are great about this movie, but probably the foremost is the incredible cinematography that I mentioned before by the great Roger Deakins. The entire movie is presented to the viewer as though it was a single shot. And what do I mean by that? Well, think about the scene from Goodfellas when Martin Scorsese performs that famous tracking shot behind Ray Liotta and Lorraine Bracco as they move through the Copa Club. We follow behind them the whole way from the backstreet entrance through the kitchen and out to their table. It's amazing. 1917 is filmed this way from beginning to end with virtually no cuts.
Damn.
Yeah.
Wow.
They obviously use like film trickery to cut scenes together because we know they're not actually filming the whole thing at once. But it appears seamless to the audience. So the impression put forth is that we are present for every second of the way through the journey of the protagonists. No cuts, no scene jumps, no contrasting perspectives. The entire movie basically feels like one long uncut scene that weaves its way through the like harrowing landscapes of World War I. And since director Sam Mendes made the decision to shoot the entire film this way, there's absolutely no better choice than Roger Deakins as your cinematographer. He's done The Shawshank Redemption, Dead Man Walking, Courage Under Fire, Fargo, Kundun, The Big Lebowski, The Siege, No Country for Old Men, Jarhead, The Assassination of Jesse James by the Coward Robert Ford, Doubt, Revolutionary Road, True Grit, A Serious Man, Skyfall, Sicario, Blade Runner, 2049. The list just goes on and on. The guy's absolutely awesome. You hire him when you want perfection, and that's exactly what you get. Virtually the whole film is tense and unnerving. It stayed with me well after it had ended and left me pondering the events of the story. The first-person narrative is really something that we've never really experienced at this level before. It functions much the way that like a very good and immersive video game can sometimes feel, but it maintains an artistic integrity that usually is found lacking in that medium. So we care almost immediately about the two soldiers and their plight. I definitely felt a stronger connection to George McKay's character, who plays Will Schofield. It's not his brother that's a part of the battalion that stands on the brink of annihilation, but he's dragged along by his friend and comrade anyway. In my opinion, it's his reason for completing the mission that contains the most poignant message of the film. Now, the fact that the majority of the action takes place over a natural landscape that is destroyed to the point of desecration serves to really make us glad that we don't live in a world of that kind of apocalyptic ruin. It's vicious coils of like barbed wire and there's dead, bloated animals everywhere, mangled, rotting corpses, half buried in the trampled earth. It stretches as far as the eye can see. And yet, occasionally, the two boys like win free of that terrain for a time, and we get like a bit of visual respite. Like they wander into like the green French countryside, and it's so stark. It's so stark based on what they just went through that it's like getting cold water splashed in your face. It's awesome, but it doesn't last. That interlude also ends in fire and death, so it brings us right back to it. But the fragility of human mortality is on center stage throughout the film's runtime, but so is the tenacity of the human spirit. This movie deserves the awards it stands poised to receive. It's a movie that's not just enjoyable from a storytelling perspective. It's also a movie for people that love the actual art of filmmaking itself. It's one of my favorites of 2019 for sure, and even though it sneaks in right at the end as it did. So definitely, everyone, add this one to your list of movies that you have to see. I would land this one easily 4 out of 5 stars.
Nice. If this had come out before you had finished your 365, would it have made your 365?
There's a damn good chance, yeah. I always feel like a movie's got to sort of sit for a little while and stew, and it seems silly, but one of the main criteria is like if I'm ever flipping through channels, I have this like feeling when something comes on. It's hard to describe. I mean, it's probably like a little adrenaline rush if I'm flipping through channels, and you never know. I don't look to see what's going to be playing at any point in the day anymore. It's I sit down if I have a few minutes and I turn the TV on, and I'll scroll through my selection of movie channels, and if there's a movie that appears on there, I just have this feeling like a little flutter, and I'm like, oh, nice, and I'll go and watch it, and it's kind of cool. Like you come in at any point, and it's the very definition of like a rewatchable movie. So I always feel like in order for something to land on my 365 favorite films, I have to sort of like check to see if it ever gives me that feeling when I'm flipping through channels. So I have a feeling this is going to land there. So.
Mm-hmm. And Jesse, you said you like war movies. Do you think this is probably one, or do you think the fact that it's so visceral from what his description is that you're probably not going to like it as much as you'd like regular war movies?
No, that doesn't usually bother me in that genre because I'm kind of expecting it more. And
Yeah.
it was on my list to see, definitely. I just haven't gotten around to it.
Are you a fan of Saving Private Ryan?
I am, yeah.
Yeah. Gore level is the same. It's if you can handle anything that you're seeing there, you get about the same here.
Yeah, I remember when that came out, people like making a huge deal and being like, "Oh, people were fainting in the theaters," and I was really scared to see it. And then it didn't really. I don't know. Maybe it's just because of the genre. Didn't bother me that much.
Yeah. Sometimes like the things that I think sometimes get people are excruciating. Like if you have in Saving Private Ryan when the doctor gets shot. I feel like that's a scene that is just so heart wrenching, and there's a lot of blood. And I'm talking, this is Saving Private Ryan, not 1917. I wanted to avoid spoilers for this one, but those are the types of scenes that I think end up really impacting people, where they get to the point of fainting. Where like a character that they love is we're watching them like slowly bleed out while everyone tries to save them, and it's just futile. That's that. I think people have a hard time with that sometimes. So.
How emotionally invested do you get in these characters?
Big time. Like especially the one I mentioned. Their personalities are very different, which is great. And I took to the George the McKay character better. Yeah, there's just something I related to him more easily. Like, he didn't want to go on the mission. His buddy just sort of selects him. He thinks that they're going on. When he picks his friend, he doesn't even know what he's picking him for. He's like, "Hey man, let's go. We got to go do this thing." And so he kind of reluctantly stands up, and that's when the single shot begins, where you just sort of follow them through the trenches. But what's so great about it gives you this. I had always read this, that like how close the different lines were to each other. When people see it, it's sometimes startling. Like, the English are planted here, and the Germans are in their trenches over here, and the distance isn't really that far. They're like shooting at each other and launching things at her in World War I across like not always long distances. So by traveling through the trenches with these guys and making the run across the no man's land between the two trenches to start the film is like you really get a feeling of how the spatial distances between these important set pieces. It's really, really awesome. Such a good choice. Some people criticize it and call it a gimmick, and it's like, you have your head up your ass. It does so much to really plant you in the time frame that these guys are moving, and it gives you such a sense of distance, and I loved it. I thought it was an absolutely amazing, brave, bold choice for the filmmakers to do. I'm so glad that they did it that way, and it's why I think I'm like flabbergasted it's not up for editing. I mean, consider what it must be like to edit scenes that have to be seamless. I mean, how can you not give it that? I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, maybe there's something about the choice for picking a movie's editing that is something I don't understand, because I mean, in my limited experiences as a filmmaker, transitioning between scenes sometimes is a real challenge, and it's something that you have to award almost entirely to the editor. Like in this case, they would have I was so curious as to when some of the cuts were. I could tell where a few of them were, and that's not to say that they were bad cuts that made me recognize. I just knew what to look for because I have a little experience with filmmaking. But sometimes it's something just like a body, not a body, but like a person who walks in front of the camera, and that allows where like top to bottom they're able to completely sort of
transition.
It's like a fake transition, but when you see what some of the transitions were like, they have to match perfectly. Like, I watched a thing where Deakins was being sort of questioned on how they did some of it. In one of the scenes that they cut midway through, there's a plane crash, and there's a lot of fire and smoke, and there's a transition where a person passes in front of the screen, and they use that as the cut. But the two, where they ended the scene from the previous filming and where they begin the scene from the next set of filming, has to match exactly. So they have to like make sure the fires are all burning correctly in the exact same place, and the smoke has to be just the right way, and the person who is moving in the background has to be in the exact same spot. It's incredible. So
that lends to my thought of, they should make Oscars more objective, because from that criteria, you think there's no way they wouldn't have gotten an Oscar for best editing.
100%. Yep. 100%. And there's a couple of cool things about the movie, just some trivia before we wrap it up. The story is apparently inspired by Sam Mendes' grandfather's experiences in World War I. I think there's like a book called The Autobiography of Alfred H. Mendes, 1897 to 1991. I thought that was pretty cool. The movie has a dedication at the end to the grandfather, and it says, "for having shared his stories," or something to that effect. Also, this is pretty crazy, but the production staff had to erect signs that warned walkers in the area that they were filming not to be alarmed by the bodies strewn around the site. I mean, there are some really like hardcore cinematography moments where they're like moving through and like you're just looking at how many corpses are laid everywhere. And there was actually one scene that impacted me. This isn't really a spoiler. I don't feel too bad sharing this. So one of the characters jumps down into a trench, and when he leaps in, he lands next to a body that's had its chest blown open next to him. Oh. And then his buddy jumps in down next to him and looks to his right, and he sees something else that startles him, and he sort of like shifts away from the dead body and hits his buddy. And because he was sort of slightly off balance, his left hand goes plummeting into the open gaping hole of the guy's and like it was crazy because the next like 5 minutes of the movie, as they moved away, the character, I'm sure they did this intentionally, he pulls his hand out and he looks at it. It's covered in gore, obviously, but it's all I could think about for the next 5 minutes as he's moving through the trench. I'm like, dude, wipe your hand off, man. Like, rub that in the dirt, get that gore off you. Like, it was such an effective thing to do because I was so unsettled for the next 5 minutes. I'm like, I would be a terrible soldier because all I could think about would be cleaning my hand, you know? Like, so it was rough.
Nice. So it's definitely immersive, like, quote unquote immersive. But do you really lose yourself in the scenes? Like,
totally, yeah. It's like that's one of the things that makes a movie stand apart for me when I stop thinking about my own life and I just lose myself in the film. I'd like forget that I exist and I just go on the journey with these guys. It's awesome. You should definitely see it. I'm not going to be sorry to see it win any awards, even if it beats out another movie that I think was deserving. And it's the kind of movie that tends to do well at the Oscars too, because of the rousing scope of the film is something that everyone can relate to.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. A little light on female characters, though, I guess, as you would expect. But other than in photographs, only 2 women appear in the entire movie. Both are in the same scene, and it's kind of cool, so I won't spoil the scene. Mm-hmm. But I almost felt like that. A lot of times that's a complaint about films, but I felt like that really made it more weighty, and it would have been the way that it was. Obviously, we're dealing with a historical event here, and so it was. It's a really awesome scene where the women appear. So I don't want to spoil it, but anyway, I thought it was an interesting.
I know that video games in general get a lot of flack for stuff like that. Like I know, like the Call of Duty World War II, it was either Battlefield or Call of Duty, and it was World War I that the game was based on. This is a couple of years ago. They introduced female characters and just kind of got mad because they said that's not historically accurate. There weren't women fighting in that war, blah blah blah. And it's curious. Like, I wonder if games have a different criteria of acceptability for that versus movies.
Yeah. I think the contributing factor is just look at the history, right? I mean, we're trying to tell a story here that's presenting things in a historical way, and doing otherwise seems to be it's cheap, like you're trying to tell the story the way that it actually happened, like why would you make those choices like that? So right. I mean, video games probably have a slightly different criteria to view them under, but even there, I think if you're trying to do something that's historical in nature, I mean, I don't know. How do you feel about that, Jess?
I'm with you on that one. I feel like if you're trying to be historical, you should be historical, and that doesn't get changed for, political correctness or whatever.
Yep. Right.
Unfortunately, that's just how things were. It doesn't mean that they are the way things should have been, but
yeah, right.
You can't erase history. So.
Exactly. Like, doesn't it somehow like make the story more interesting? That fact, like, I mean, it's something to consider. It's another aspect of a time period that I don't know. Doesn't mean that it's good. It just that's the way that it was. So
right.
Yeah.
So what would you give it? So you said definitely 4 stars, solid.
Oh yeah, easily. Yep, easy 4 stars. Yep.
Maybe a 4.5, because it sounds like you're praising it pretty well.
Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna ride the 4 for a while, and I tend to do halves when I'm not confident. So yeah, 5. What's funny is I don't think I have a lot of movies at like 4.5 stars. It's a very clear distinction for me whether or not something is like that, eternal awesome thing. But something that might have once been a 4-star movie certainly can become a 5-star in my later reflection, but not a place that I often put a half.
Right. What would be like a 5? Do you have any 5-star war movies?
That's a good question.
Like, I would say, for me, if I was using your criteria, Saving Private Ryan is a 5-star movie.
Yeah, I think that in my when I created my list of 365 movies, where I began from was years ago on Netflix. They had like a rating system where you could give a movie 1 to 5 stars, and because I'm so into movies, and I also wanted Netflix to be able to properly recommend to me movies that, you know, it has that suggestion feature based on how you liked other films. I'm like, it's probably worth my time to start putting star ratings into these movies. So I did, and I became a little addicted to it. So I think I have is certainly well over probably it's like 3,000 to 5,000 movies that I rated. And whenever I was bored, I'd just log in and be like, let's, you know, hey, show me a bunch of movies, and if I've seen them, I'll rate them. And but what was great is when I went to put my 365 favorite movies together, I was able to use that as my starting place. So I'm like, show me all of my 5-star movies, and I'm very confident that I had Saving Private Ryan in that list. Yeah, I mean that one belongs there for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So 1917, not quite up to Saving Private Ryan standard.
It just needs time. It's a different kind of movie than Saving Private Ryan. Saving Private Ryan is like shoots larger and mostly hits it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Whereas this one is much smaller and more personal, and it tells a different kind of story. In time, I might land this one there, but I'm always cautious about popping something in with a 5-star. You got to be something special to make an Empire Strikes Back level kind of viewing, you know?
That's true. All right, think we'll wrap it up. Any final thoughts, guys?
I think I'm good.
I'm good.
Anything coming up that you want to, shout out or promote?
We got PAX East coming up. I'm going to be there. Battleground Games and Hobbies will be having its regular, very large presence in the tabletop hall at PAX East. And the dates for PAX East it starts on Thursday. It's a 4-day convention. So we'll be there from Thursday, February 27th through Sunday, March 1st. So if you're going to be at PAX East, make sure you come by and say hi to us there.
Yeah, and just as a side note, all of DadHat's going to be there, the 3 of us.
Yep.
Yes.
We'll be on Saturday. I think we'll all be there, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And you actually have a little mini booth in the booth, Jesse, don't you, going on? Or is that...
That's the plan.
Yep.
Yeah, I've been building up some geeky earring inventory to have at Derek's booth, so that's kind of exciting.
Yeah, people are going to love that.
Sweet.
I hope so.
All right. I guess that's it for this episode. Again, I want to thank you guys for listening. Please like, follow, and subscribe to our social media links. Please give us some reviews and ratings so we can become searchable on your favorite podcasting platforms. And if you watch on YouTube, just click on the bell for notifications. Other than that, thanks again, and we will talk to you next time. Take care.
Bye.
Down to Gehenna or up to the throne, he travels fastest who travels alone.